Hello, everybody, and welcome to Industry Spotlight with Creative First. Our guest today is Nishit Shetty. He's the business head and chief business development officer for Red Chili's VFX and Red Chili's Color. He is a veteran with expertise in this field for over 20 years, which includes, business leadership, operations, business development. And previously, Nishit has held leadership positions at Ad Labs, Reliance Media Works, Prime Focus. I really look forward to this discussion with you, Nishit. Welcome. And,
Thank you so much, Samantha.
thank you for your time with us today.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
so Nishit, you've had vast experience across different aspects of the industry for over 20 years. What is the growth outlook, for the VFX industry today?
Say 20 years and you keep referring to me as a veteran. It sounds like I've become very old. but, uh, but thank you so much for inviting me over so that I can share my
But
insights.
it's also, I mean, besides talking about experience, and we always try to make these conversations candid. It's also a reference to know that the VFX industry is no longer nascent, and I think it needs a little bit of focus. And therefore, pardon me, I don't make you, you're young as ever, but I think we
Uh,
need to really talk about what the industry outlook, is today.
I think not only the visual effects side, I think the overall post-production business. When I talk about post-production business, it specifically also means a lot of people who are working behind the camera as well, right? And some of those guys could also be people who have been working behind the scenes from the production stage itself. So, from a growth outlook perspective, if you ask me this question, I think uh, every year, every 3 to 5 years, we have had changes happening right across the stream, whether it's production, whether it's post production, whether it's distribution. So change is permanent. So it's not something that we'll be able to fight. It's going to be there as a critical part of this business. And like I've mentioned before, it's right from whether we have moved from analog to digital, and today even on the distribution side we have moved completely to digital. There's no way that we can escape it, right? What I think will specifically change is the tool sets that we have in terms of showing our audiences the new experiences that we can get to them. The storytelling process will still remain the same. I think we'll still continue to make movies. There'll still be mediums where we'll be showing content to people. Just the tool sets that we use, that's specifically for people behind the camera and for people who are making this content, all those tool sets are continuously going to be changing. And also the level of experiences that we are going to give our clients, our customers, our audiences, that's going to be changing, right? So that's where we see when, if you're talking of 15, 20 years back, right, we were only having one primary medium, which was the feature film business, right? And we had television. But now we have OTT, we have social media, which is one of the biggest. We have TikTok and the short form videos where people are uploading stuff on Instagram. So I think that is the major change. Our audiences have actually got sliced into all these various areas of where they can actually enjoy content and actually experience storytelling in various formats, whether it's a short format, whether it's the feature film, whether it's sporting experiences, live experiences, music experiences. So it's basically it's something that is going to happen. We not None of us will be able to say what exactly is going to change in the next 2 years, next 3 years. That's very difficult to pinpoint and say at this juncture. But one thing is for sure, that as we keep going along, the changes are going to be far more rapid, in the sense that earlier, if you would see changes happening, like if I had to take examples of audio. So audio just had Dolby, had stereo audio, then you move to Dolby, then you move to Atmos. So this happened over a period of, say, about 10, 15 years. Right now, there are things are changing extremely dynamically, even on the visual side, right? I mean, so when you had cameras and you had analog film, film has been selling for more than 100 years. But then when it stopped suddenly. And now every 6 months to probably a year and a half, you're having newer cameras coming in, newer formats, higher resolutions. So now the changes are going to be much more rapid, and this is happening across, whether we are talking only of the post production side of the business. I'm also talking in terms of the acquisition side of the business, whether it's cameras, whether it's technology for motion control, whether it's the post production processes and visual effects, whether it's distribution mediums. a lot of this is going to be changing rapidly across the various genres of the filmmaking process.
Nishit, what are the challenges and opportunities you see for the VFX industry? I mean, I would imagine that the industry is at the crux of, the changing technology, as you mentioned.
Uh, uh, Challenges being on the business development side, I primarily feel is budgets. Budgets is one of the major challenges that we face as post-production studios, because primarily what happens is by the time the producer reaches the post-production stage, he's pretty much run out of steam for his budgets for post-production and time also. So these two are primarily the major challenges that I see. That we need to give more time for post-production. We need to give more. We need to allocate more budgets for post-production. Also, it can't be an afterthought. Like today, post is actually part of the filmmaking process, right? I mean, say, and it's changing. While I'm saying these things, I'm also admitting the fact that we are become a very critical component. People have realized that uh, we need to be involved right from the beginning itself. We can't be someone who's called at the last minute for some fix. It's not like that anymore. So we are being involved at the beginning stages itself. And in terms of these are the challenges that typically come to mind. Also, talent retention. I think it's a extremely dynamic time at this point. With being able to manage and retain talent within your facility. I think that is also a very critical component of being able to deliver good quality outputs to your clients. So being able to get your talent trained to the level of expertise that the market expects of you, right? You're supposed to be doing that as well. So along with the client retention, it's also important that you're able to retain your key talent. So that's also a very critical part of the challenges. In terms of opportunities, I think opportunities have just opened up, like I said, with the advent of OTT, with gaming exploding. I think every small and large studio today has a certain uh, a key quality or a key focus area, where the market also recognizes them by that. So today, if there's a large budget project going, so the client is very smart. He knows that where he needs to go with his film or his project, where he needs to get the film delivered, right? So if it's a specific genre, like say, like in Hollywood or in studios abroad, there are facilities which have certain key strengths. Like somebody's good with a destruction pipeline, somebody's good with animal, for creating animals, somebody's good with virtual production. So I think the opportunities that this explosion of content is providing is that every small and large studio today will be able to focus on a key area where the clients will start recognizing them for that kind of work. And obviously the market will find its own space by reaching out to these particular studios. So I think that's pretty much the opportunity, because today, with so much content happening and so much post production happening, there is enough work for everybody. So that's the opportunity I see. That's the chance that you can make a difference.
Um, Nishit, how has it been for the VFX industry, in this pandemic? I think worldwide, what we've seen is a lot of people did rely on post-production a lot because people working from home. So how has it been, has the experience been for you?
So the pandemic threw a new set of challenges, I think, to everyone right across, and say across industries. And I think post-production business was no different. Uh, First of all, it caught all of us unawares. That, let us admit that, especially people who were focusing and on servicing only the domestic clients wouldn't have experienced anything like this. I think the studios who were servicing international clients had a little bit of first mover advantage. I would not say advantage. I would say knowledge about what was happening in other markets. So I think they were a little better prepared, because obviously the reporting structure is to those specific markets, right? Whether in the US or UK. So they knew what kind of stuff was happening, because some of these markets closed before or faced lockdown before what India faced. So I think they had that, a little advantage of sending equipments to people's houses. So in terms of comparing it to our studio, we also did the same. I think a lot of equipments were sent, systems were sent to artist houses, and Then we eventually used remote desktop, and with all the content being secure at the facility, and obviously trying to learn how we could cope up with the current scenario. So essentially what was happening is it was a learning experience for everybody. So, anything that would require probably 1 day to do probably would take 3 days. But then eventually that time also started getting, it started getting lesser and lesser, that, your efficiency would improve. Some adapted better than the others, I think. So there's, like I said, it's a learning experience for a lot of people. People understood that work can be done from home. Clients were willing to, appreciate the fact that, this work can be done from home and also in a secure environment, without having loss to their content, or without having a fear of losing their content. So this was something which was unheard of, right? I mean, so in a pre-pandemic era, nobody would have wanted to do that. So I think that was something which was a big learning experience. And I think we were also, a lot of our guys got encouraged with the fact also. We One of the first deliveries that we did in a completely work from home scenario was, I think, Gunjan Saxena for Netflix. So that project was completely done. Was the first project that we did at Red Chilies, which was completely delivered from home, in a work from home scenario. But I would like to also point out that the visual effects element of post production was something that was being done by home, but the final reviews and the color grading is something that had to be done. The colorist had to come to a calibrated environment within the studio to actually final deliver the film. So that one particular element uh, had the requirement. There were a few people worldwide who reported that they were working from home, but I don't think it was the most efficient way. The final reviews, in the sense that wherein someone had to come and work, especially the colorist and his support team, and the cinematographer or the director would have to come, and through the process, if you're working like over a period of 2-3 months, you are reviewing multiple shots. So we had softwares like Frame.io, which helped us, send material up and down and get reviews, and register the feedback from the clients, and then make that delivery happen. So that process went through, but eventually at the final stage, you do needed to get back to the studio and deliver the final, make the
So,
final delivery.
from the learnings of the pandemic, were there any advances that were made in the VFX industry? What really progressed?
I think the kind of nature that is there in the business is that we learned all these things, no doubt. It's not, and I'm sure a lot of people would admit that it's not the most ideal way of doing things. We know that it can be done at this point in time, but people will still miss that physical interaction, wherein they would want to come and work with the creative supervisor. So say if a team lead is meeting, is having a final discussion with his visual effects artist, right? A comp lead, or a 3D lead is trying to push his artist to. So there, the physical presence being there is obviously much more better. The way you're able to deliver. I'm not saying that work can't be done, but obviously in person, I'm sure the artists could feel that they could do much more in person. I mean, say the in studio presence definitely makes a much more difference than being there. But I think, uh, like I said, the pandemic taught us that a lot of things can be managed remotely as well. So today, if there is, God forbid, a situation like this again, we are like in the second lockdown and third lockdown, everyone knew exactly what had to be done, right? So certain non-critical jobs could also be sent across for people who are working from home. So that kind of stuff was also something that could be achieved. And also, a lot of meetings that we have, like discussion of VFX breakdowns, or discussion of references, or especially the pre-production work that involved discussions between team members, could obviously was going through, because a lot of projects were being planned. So that part of the post-production, where discussion is required with the key creative team members, was always being done via Zoom. So
Right.
so that those things obviously now we are taking forward as a learning. There are a lot of other things, I think, in terms of, like I also said, in terms of mandates, estimations, right? It takes a little bit more time for achieving a particular result, because there's a lot of collaboration involved. That same frame of content has to move through multiple teams, right? So it's just not a one way in and one way out. Somebody who probably works independently, like an editor or probably a individual sound designer, somebody who is working on a very individual uh, work for the film, somebody whose work is not dependent on someone else, right? So that work probably could work faster in this kind of an environment.
What are the latest technologies that are really driving the space today in terms of overall cinematic experience for audiences?
Like I mentioned earlier, today things are rapidly changing. So tech is moving all these things pretty much faster. So whether it's on cameras, it's on motion control. So it's not specifically only to post production. It's happening across the gamut. So there are new cameras being launched. There's new stuff coming on motion control. There's motion control equipment which is able to give you a very high quality high quality shots can be taken. Then you have, like I mentioned, motion control equipment that helps for visual effects, right? Whether there are repeatable moves that need to be done. So all these kind of things are all coming together in the post production process, and obviously the post production process is able to elevate it to a higher level. And along with that is there's also at the distribution and the exhibition level, the projectors are getting better. You're having 4K projection systems now. IMAX is coming up, multiple venues. So like I mentioned, it's not only the visual effects side, it's happening across the industry. And if you're talking specific to the visual effects industry, I would say, see, there was a big buzz about virtual production happening, but that also means that a lot of the stuff that you need to be ready with. When we talk about virtual production, we are talking of content being completely created within a CGI environment, right? The way Jungle Book was done. Or you're talking of probably in-camera VFX, where you're shooting across an LED screen, right? Where the assets or the plates of the LED that are being projected on the LED screen have already got to be ready, or your environment needs to be ready, or whether it's generated in software through Unreal Engine and being projected. All of these elements need to be ready in advance. And finally, also live experiences, whether we are doing sports, and that was always being used. So I think these are the few things that are coming together now on the virtual productions, I would say, on the visual effects side. So for that to change, the entire filmmaking process has to change. It's not only specific to the visual effects guys, right? It's also important that the creative team is ready to experiment with all these things, right? So if like I mentioned earlier, and I remember in one of my LinkedIn posts, that if there's no lockdown, people still go back to the old way of doing things. And I think that's pretty much what's happening. I don't think anything has majorly changed, especially with the filmmakers. For them to experience something new, right? They have to have the tool set, and they have to have the mind space to go into that. And also, a lot of stuff in our industry sometimes is happens on the set, right? I mean, say, stories are still happening, and I'm not saying that people are not ready with their scripts or anything like that, but there are decisions that creative people want to take at the last minute itself, right? At having, like the example people keep giving of Mandalorian, that was a world which was completely created. People knew what exactly that world is, so all those assets could be created in advance, and also it's very expensive, right? So that is a completely different mindset in terms of making a film. So there are certain stories probably that could lend themselves better, right, to these kind of newer technologies. And there are certain story, like we like the complete our feature film Zero, which was done by Red Chillies. It was completely shot on the motion control rig that we had, the Technodolly. But uh, every film can't be shot on that. That story lent itself because SRK was playing someone who's not his normal height. So that film required that kind of a setup, right? So every film's requirement defines the way it needs to be done. So that's what it is. So some stories lend themselves better, some stories don't lend themselves better. So if you're talking of virtual production also as a technology, it was always being used by uh, our sporting event guys, especially the stuff that we see on sports broadcast, right? So that's live virtual production being done, right? So they keep changing the
Yes.
backgrounds, they keep showing the analysis on the screen. So all that was always being done. So like I mentioned, so it depends on the experience or the kind of coverage that you're doing, whether it's a sports coverage, whether it's a feature film, whether it's a musical concert. So it's dependent on what exactly you are trying to give your audience. What is the experience you're trying to give your audience? The tech is there.
So how do you see things evolving? Because it's a matter of vision, like you said earlier. It's really how I want to visualize my story and how much investment I want to make in VFX. We've clearly seen that a lot of foreign content, specifically the West, they do spend a lot of time on the post production and VFX part of the story. Do you see a change in mindset, and also from a percentage point of view, how has that kind of grown over the years?
So my feeling is that definitely it has improved. It's not what it was few years ago. Like at least 15 years back, if I had to think of visual effects, it would it was always an afterthought. People would come later on for post, and so today, like I mentioned earlier, we are part of creative meetings where VFX breakdowns come to us. We are told that these are the shots or sequences in the film, or we are asked to read the script and identify those portions which are going to happen in visual effects, right? So definitely there's been a great shift in mindset. People understand the value. There's no doubt about it that they know that visual effects can elevate a film experience completely. In fact, I can't name directors, but when we have conversations with them, they are very clear that a certain subject can make or break the audience experience. So they won't compromise on that at all. So they know specifically that, okay, if I have to achieve this kind of uh, an effect with my audience, the visual effects can't be tacky, right? And also visual effects, the best quality of visual effects when we talk of it is something that's invisible. So a lot of our visual effects today needs to be invisible and is invisible as I speak, right? I mean, so visual effects doesn't only mean that you're having tentpole movies, somebody flying from somewhere and some car getting blast or stuff. There's a lot of visual effects, like you're shooting in a particular environment and you have replaced the background completely, or you're shooting in a studio location and you have made it seem like a resort. So there are all these things that actually contribute to the filmmaking process. So the people, if we are able to do this as invisible VFX, yes, then you are creating that experience for your clients. So, and that's where I think people have realized that it's not only if you're having a superhero coming in, or you're having a horror film coming in, then that's the only time you need VFX. People have realized that you need to have visual effects support, even if it's for 5 to 10% of the film. Whatever visual effects you're doing, it is invisible. Like I mentioned, it should be invisible. It has to be invisible visual effects. In terms of percentages, like I mentioned, it's difficult to put like a specific number, but I think we are growing. That number is growing. Like today, it could be probably anywhere between 10 to 20% of the overall budget if
Oh,
it's
I
a
think my
visual
question
effects.
was more in terms of a film, right? So it
Yeah,
depends, like you also rightly mentioned, that it's a vision, how you want to
yeah.
envision your story. So has the percentage of VFX, grown from a pie?
Yes,
Like,
yes,
okay,
absolutely. In
earlier,
terms of
what
budgets,
was
if
it
you're
that?
asking me the numbers, yes, they have grown. If you're asking me in terms of percentage and how much percentage of the total budget, I mean, say people like to do that. I think it's you can do that after the film is done, or people plan for it. But obviously, like Bahubali, you can say that. I've read reports which say that it was about close to half of the film budget. So there are projects which go up to 30-40% probably.
Right.
They're more expensive than probably the above the line costs of the film. But having said that, I'm going back to what I said, that it depends on what kind of film it is. So you can't have just like a thumb rule which says that this is 5% or 10%, or you can't preempt that right at the beginning, right? I mean, so the number has definitely grown. If you're talking of how it used to be 10 years ago, 15 years ago, definitely, I mean, say it's grown by leaps and bounds. Like today, if you're working on, visual effects is also not about quantity, it's about quality. So if you're doing one major film, then probably the facility is just working on that one film through the year. You're not doing any other thing, and it's you just can't keep filling the pipeline with multiple projects, right? So sometimes it depends on the extent of work that is there in that particular film.
Right.
So in terms of percentages, like I mentioned, yes, it's definitely grown. If coming back to your question,
Right.
it has grown by leaps and bounds. And in terms of, like I said, you could probably take 10 to 15% of the overall budget, depending on how large the budget is. that would also make a difference, right? I mean, say if a film is 25 crores, that 10% would look probably, it's huge. But the same number when you're talking of a 250, 300 crore film, that number obviously needs to go up. The percentage needs to go up.
Nishit, from a policy perspective, the government of India today has envisioned that we should become the content hub of the world. India should become the content hub of the world, and I believe that there's so much of work that's happening in the VFX and animation industry. A lot of foreign projects are worked upon in India. Uh, Two specific questions. One is, what are the challenges and opportunities for the industry as a whole? And second, how do you think that we can best capture the opportunity available to us in terms of probably production incentives, etc.?
So I think we all of us know, right? It was announced. I think the last budget also they announced,
Yes.
and I think the government has been very active. They identified it as a sunrise sector, which is very good. So we generally the media and entertainment industry is not very seriously taken by most governments. Nach Gana industry is typically what it is, but people now have realized that there is a whole support ecosystem that works along with the film and media. It's only that we don't get spoken about much because we are the background guys, right? So, but obviously the opportunity has been identified because of so much content, and like I said, with OTT and whether even with social media, and all of these things come under the overall media and entertainment gamut, right? So from a industry perspective, I think what good has happened is that they've identified the AVGC sector, and we have the key representatives from the industry being part of the government initiative. I mean, so collaboratively, they are doing a lot of events. They're doing, I think recently also they did something with Symbiosis, where I think the Media Entertainment Skills Council also came together. A lot of skilling and talent is required. So, when you announce these initiatives, one good thing is that there's awareness that it is just not another industry, film industry, and film industry is just a minuscule part of it. Actually, if you look at the overall media and entertainment sector, film exhibition business is we just get talked about more because of obviously the actors and the popularity bit being there. But the fact is that television, OTT are much larger sectors, and there is a lot of visual effects and post production services required on that side. There's software development is also, I mean, so there's development required at the skill level as well, right? So we need to skill our people, and so that is what we also need to focus on. And I think the government is doing a good job in that sense, like with the AVGC sector being there. Like I mentioned, I'm part of that group. See a lot of initiatives being announced. And
Could you tell us a little bit more about these initiatives and what you all
so,
are working on?
so if we specifically talk, I think first of all the industry participation that is there, right? I mean, say when you call key people from the industry and hear them out, that is the biggest thing that any government can do. That the fact that our people, we have a voice, right? Every industry, whether it's somebody from the animation business, or anyone who's coming from the television background, or somebody who's coming from post production background. So somebody is coming from graphics or whatever, comics or all that, the entire you have people representing, the key people representing and giving and putting their pain points forward, right? So I think that initiative itself is a big thing. And like I mentioned, right, if you're moving towards skilling all these people, I think there are other in universities like Whistling Woods who are doing a lot of stuff on virtual production. Then I think they have courses which are defined for this industry. And when you're talking about, I think incentives are also, specific states have come with certain incentives, and I think something was recently announced. I'm sorry, I'm not really clued on that side of what kind of incentives have been announced, but I think certain governments are also coming forward with incentives, that if you set up a studio in a special economic zone, certain benefits can be provided, right? So all these things, and also uh, being there and being present, and sending out the message to the overall worldwide audience that we are serious about what we are talking about, is also a very big initiative. So I think a lot of these things are in development, and I'm sure we'll see fruition. These things will come together. A lot of, in fact, if you see, a lot of the international studios are already here. The big boys, whether it's DNEG, whether it's Frame Store, whether it's MPC, all the major studios are already here, and I'm sure they are here not because only of the opportunity that they see. It's also because a lot of initiative has been taken up by the government as well. So this is what I particularly feel, that we are moving in the right direction. It's the next 5 to 10 years are going to be very what I would like to say is, very dynamic, and also it's going to be a major rapid growth phase for all these industries that are connected to the media and entertainment sector.
So on that note, Nishit, what is next for Red Chillies VFX?
So, in fact, we have never been busier right now as we speak. We are delivering Lal Singh Chadda, which is the remake of Forrest Gump for, Amir Khan Productions and Viacom Studios and Paramount. And we're also doing Raksha Bandhan, which is, Color Yellow Productions. Both are releasing on the same day and on the 11th of August. And it's an extremely busy time for us. We have never been busier, as I said. Having both their color grading and visual effects work happening out of our facility. So, these two are coming on the 11th of August. Then, I think by the 31st of September, we're having Vikram Veda's remake, and also Mani Ratnam's Ponniyin Selvan, which is being color graded at our facility. So on OTT we are delivering Good Luck Jerry. Like I mentioned, it's been the busiest at Red Chillies. So it's been an interesting time, also a very busy time, and happy to be delivering good quality work. We are considered at the top end of the spectrum for delivering good work in post production. So that's something we're very happy about, and we're working towards delivering better work. So these are the films that we are working on right now. I think going forward next year there's in-house work also. There's Pathan happening, then there's Donkey with Raju Hirani, and also Jawan is there. So these are the projects we are having. There's one with Dharma, I think it's called Yodha. These are the ones we are looking forward to. So it's been a good year, and looking forward also. It's looking great.
Thank you so much for this discussion. I'd just like to summarize, and please feel free to add. I think if there is so much of opportunity in this industry as we speak, and just from a one production post production house, which is Red Chillies, I can just imagine what the possibilities would be if we start really taking if we take on the outsourcing part very seriously. I'm really very happy to know that the stakeholders and your team are working so hard with the government as well. We hope that this continues, and wish you all the best, and thank you so much, besides in spite of having such a busy schedule, to have this discussion with us.
Thanks so much, Loita, for
Thank
inviting
you.
me, and all the best to you guys at Creative
Thank you.
First.
Thank you. Bye.